There are stories that unfold on screen, and then there are stories that happen behind the lens. Stories too vivid, too electric, and too alive to be scripted. The world has witnessed the iconic bond between Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo through their performances, but what fans don't often see are the moments that breathe between takes. The laughter, the quiet glances, the unspoken understanding that turned a partnership into something magical. From the first day they met on set, there was something almost cinematic about their chemistry. Xiao Zhan, with his gentle yet commanding presence, carried an air of calm professionalism. Wang Yibo, sharp, cool, and effortlessly charismatic, carried that spark of mystery that made everyone pay attention. Together, they were opposites that aligned like poetry written by fate itself. It was a cold morning when filming began. The director called for a break after the first few takes. The crew buzzed around setting up lights, adjusting props, while the two stars stood quietly on opposite ends of the set. Xiao Zhan, ever the observer, noticed Wang Yibo's quiet focus. Yibo's gaze was fixed on his motorbike, the same one he had insisted on bringing to the set for creative inspiration. Xiao Zhan approached with a smile. "You really don't let that thing go, do you?" he teased. Yibo smirked. "It's not a thing. It's part of the scene. You wouldn't understand." The two laughed. A small moment, barely noticeable to the crew, but that laughter echoed through every fan's heart when the behind-the-scenes clip later went viral. It wasn't just friendship forming. It was a connection that sparked from authenticity. During breaks, the crew began noticing something unusual. Whenever one was struggling with a line or a scene, the other would instinctively appear beside him, quietly offering help. There was no ego, no competition. Xiao Zhan would patiently explain emotional nuances, while Yibo would counter with physical energy and movement tips. The result? Scenes so real, so alive, they blurred the line between acting and reality. One particularly unforgettable day, a storm broke out just as they were filming an emotional confrontation scene. Thunder roared, rain poured, and the director almost called it off, until Xiao Zhan, drenched and shivering, said, "Let's keep going. It feels real." Yibo, without hesitation, nodded. They continued filming, their voices nearly drowned by the storm, faces illuminated by flashes of lightning. When the director finally yelled, "Cut," the entire crew was silent, not out of shock but awe. Later, a behind-the-scenes clip revealed what happened next. Yibo quickly removed his jacket, wrapping it around Xiao Zhan's shoulders, muttering something under his breath that made Xiao Zhan laugh despite the freezing rain. Fans replayed that moment endlessly. Because it wasn't scripted, it was human. Then there were the playful moments, the ones that turned long, exhausting filming days into something unforgettable. During a costume fitting, Yibo once tried to sneakily switch their props, leaving Xiao Zhan holding the wrong sword. When the director called "action," Xiao Zhan lifted the prop, realized it was much heavier than usual, and gave Yibo a look that sent the entire set into laughter. Yibo tried to look innocent, but his mischievous grin gave him away. "Revenge is coming," Xiao Zhan warned, eyes narrowing playfully. And revenge did come. During a later scene, Xiao Zhan added extra spice to Yibo's lunch when no one was looking. When Yibo took the first bite, his eyes went wide, and he immediately reached for water. Xiao Zhan, sitting across from him, just smiled and said sweetly, "Delicious, right?" The crew roared with laughter, capturing another priceless behind-the-scenes gem that fans still quote today. But beyond the fun and laughter, there was a deep sense of respect that shaped their working relationship. One night, as filming stretched past midnight, exhaustion began to show. Xiao Zhan's voice cracked during a line, and he frowned, clearly frustrated. Without a word, Yibo walked up, placed a hand on his shoulder and said quietly, "You've got this. Take your time." It was a small gesture, but in that moment something shifted. Xiao Zhan later admitted in an interview that Yibo's quiet encouragement gave him the strength to finish the scene perfectly. That's the thing about their dynamic. It was never about competition, only connection. The crew often said their energy changed the entire atmosphere on set. When they were together, even the most stressful moments turned light-hearted. They would dance between takes, improvise jokes, and make everyone, from camera operators to makeup artists, feel part of something special. One day, during a particularly emotional shoot, Zhan accidentally stumbled and fell during a take. The crew rushed in, but Yibo was the first to reach him, helping him up and checking his hand for injury. Zhan brushed it off with a laugh, but Yibo's expression stayed serious until he confirmed there was no harm. That clip, too, found its way online, sparking endless fan discussions about Yibo's quiet protectiveness. Their behind-the-scenes friendship wasn't just about humor or support. It was about understanding each other in a way that transcended words. They could communicate through a single look. When one forgot a line, the other instinctively filled in, saving the moment. When one was tired, the other brought laughter. During interviews, journalists often tried to capture their magic, asking about their favorite scenes or funniest memories. But what they couldn't capture was the unspoken bond that made their performances so believable. Yibo once said, "Working with Zhan feels like learning how to breathe again. You don't think about it, it just happens naturally." And Zhan in turn said, "There's a kind of trust that you don't find often in this industry. With Yibo it's there, always." Fans watching the behind-the-scenes footage could feel it too. Every smile, every glance, every shared joke seemed to tell a bigger story, one of friendship, trust, and an unexplainable connection that made their on-screen chemistry undeniable. As filming wrapped up, the final day became a wave of emotions. The crew gathered for a small farewell, and Zhan gave a short speech thanking everyone. When he mentioned Yibo, his voice softened. "He's been my strength more times than he knows," he said. Yibo, characteristically quiet, just nodded. But later, when no cameras were rolling, he approached Zhan, handed him a small silver charm and said, "For the next one. Because we'll meet again." The charm became a symbol for fans, a sign of the bond that carried beyond the screen. And true enough, in interviews and public appearances afterward, the two would still exchange smiles, quiet jokes, and that unmistakable warmth that reminded everyone their story didn't end when the cameras stopped rolling. Behind every great performance is something unseen, a friendship, a spark, a shared heartbeat that fuels the art. For Zhan and Wang Yibo, that heartbeat never fades. It lingers in every laugh, every behind-the-scenes whisper, every stolen glance that fans replay endlessly online. What truly makes a story unforgettable isn't just what's captured by the camera. It's the magic that happens when the director says, "Cut." For Zhan and Wang Yibo, their behind-the-scenes chemistry wasn't just natural. It was cinematic in itself. Every shared smile, every playful argument, and every quiet glance told its own story, one that fans couldn't get enough of. The world saw them as two talented actors, but behind closed doors, they were a perfect balance of chaos and calm. Zhan, the patient perfectionist, was often found reviewing scripts, fine-tuning his lines until every emotion landed perfectly. Wang Yibo, on the other hand, was instinctive. He relied on his gut, flowing through every scene with a kind of effortless cool that seemed untouchable. Yet, when the cameras stopped rolling, it was Zhan who often drew that laughter out of Yibo's quiet reserve, breaking the ice in ways only he could. One unforgettable moment happened during a night shoot that stretched past 2 a.m. The set lights cast long shadows, and everyone was starting to feel the exhaustion. Zhan, ever full of energy, suddenly began humming a random tune between takes. The melody echoed softly through the set until Yibo, sitting a few meters away, looked up with a smirk. Without warning, he started beatboxing to match the rhythm. The entire crew burst into laughter. The director, amused, didn't stop them. He let the impromptu performance continue. Zhan danced in mock seriousness, his costume flowing dramatically, while Yibo tapped his foot in perfect rhythm, his signature poker face giving way to a rare grin. That moment, captured by a staff member's phone, became one of the most replayed behind-the-scenes clips among fans. A small, golden glimpse of the magic that happened when the cameras stopped. Another day brought chaos disguised as comedy. It was a heavy emotional scene, meant to capture heartbreak and loss. But just as the director called action, a butterfly, yes, a real butterfly, fluttered straight onto Yibo's shoulder. Zhan tried to keep his composure, but the sight was too funny. His lips twitched. Then he broke into laughter mid-line. Yibo glared, trying to stay serious, but when the butterfly decided to land right on his nose, even he couldn't resist. They both collapsed into uncontrollable laughter while the director sighed dramatically. "Gentlemen, the butterfly is now the star of the scene." The crew roared, and someone jokingly started calling the insect their co-actor. Zhan and Yibo never stopped teasing each other about it after that. Whenever something went wrong on set, Yibo would deadpan, "Maybe the butterfly should do it instead." But between the laughter, there were moments that revealed something deeper, the kind of connection that doesn't need words. During a rehearsal for a fight scene, Yibo performed a quick spin move that required precise timing from Zhan. One slip could have caused injury. The scene demanded speed but also trust. After several intense takes, Yibo stopped, breathing hard, and said, "Don't hold back, I can handle it." Zhan looked at him and smiled. "I know. That's why I'm giving it my all." When they finally nailed the scene, the director clapped and shouted, "Perfect! That's the energy." But even before that praise, the two shared a silent nod, an unspoken acknowledgement between artists who understood each other perfectly. What made their behind-the-scenes moments unforgettable wasn't just the playfulness, but the balance of care and challenge they shared. Zhan often made sure Yibo ate properly between scenes, once even feeding him with chopsticks when Yibo refused to leave his bike. "You're going to run on fumes," Zhan scolded lightly, holding up the bowl. Yibo tried to look annoyed but ended up eating anyway. The crew watched with amusement because it was always like that. One teased, the other pretended to resist, but both ended up laughing. There was also the infamous lost earpiece incident. During one shoot, Zhan misplaced his in-ear monitor. They searched everywhere. Under props, behind cameras, nothing. Then Yibo, pretending to be serious, walked up and said, "Maybe you should check your pocket again." Zhan rolled his eyes, checked just to prove him wrong, and there it was. The whole crew erupted. Zhan gave Yibo a mock glare and said, "You're enjoying this way too much." Yibo, trying to hide his grin, replied, "Just helping, Gidge." And there were the quiet moments too, those soft, in-between silences that said more than words ever could. During a rain shoot, when both were soaked and shivering, the crew paused to reset the lights. Zhan stood still, watching the rain fall around them. Yibo, standing beside him, quietly handed over a towel without saying a word. Zhan smiled in gratitude, and they stood side by side in comfortable silence. That moment never made it into any behind-the-scenes video, but those who were there said it was beautiful. Two people drenched and tired, yet perfectly in sync. Their friendship became the invisible heartbeat of the entire production. When one forgot a line, the other covered seamlessly. When one made a mistake, the other turned it into a joke. The atmosphere around them was infectious, full of laughter, trust, and a sense of family. Even the director once joked, "If we could film the behind-the-scenes moments between you two, it'd be an even bigger hit than the show itself." Perhaps he was right. Because what made fans fall in love wasn't just the story on screen, it was how real the connection felt off it. As filming came to an end, the last day was heavy with emotion. The entire crew gathered, clapping and cheering as the final scene wrapped. Zhan bowed deeply to thank everyone, but when he turned, he saw Yibo standing behind him, offering a quiet handshake. Instead of shaking, Zhan pulled him into a brief hug, spontaneous and genuine. The crew cheered louder, capturing that final embrace that would later melt millions of hearts online. Afterward, when the cameras were packed away and the set lights dimmed, the two sat together for a while, just talking. No scripts, no lines, just laughter echoing in the empty studio. Zhan looked at Yibo and said softly, "You made this journey unforgettable." Yibo smiled faintly, his voice calm as always. "It wouldn't have been the same without you." And that's what fans felt, that rare, unfiltered connection that can't be rehearsed or replaced. It wasn't just acting. It was real friendship caught in the flicker of lights, preserved forever in every behind-the-scenes smile. Because long after the cameras stopped rolling, Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo's story continued. In the memories they created, the laughter they shared, and the bond that time could never erase. Their behind-the-scenes moments remind us that the greatest magic often happens where no one expects it, in the quiet, genuine spaces between the spotlight and the shadows.